Restore Pokemon, TCG, and sports cards here on the Cardboard Alchemist podcast. And now here are your hosts, Giovanni and Sebastian.
Welcome to the Cardboard Alchemist podcast. I'm Giovanni, your host. Unfortunately, we're going to be having a solo podcast this time because Sebastian got hurt. He tweaked his back over the holiday weekend, and we're all praying for him. If you can, send your prayers over to him. His back is really been bad. He's on pain meds right now. Believe me, there's nothing more in the world I'm sure he would want to do than to miss this week's episode. But it's best he gets better, and we're really praying for him. So it's sad, again, goes to show just how precious life is, and to be very, very cognizant of your health. Even myself, I went and found out I have something up with my heart after a CT scan, so pay attention to your body. Get your walks in, and, you just don't sit on the freaking computer all day like me. So we have an awesome episode for you today. I'm going to be giving away this Phantasmal Flames Pokemon Center ETB in the Patreon episode, so stay tuned to that. I'm also going to be giving away this Vaporeon card here to one of you at the end of the episode. So stay tuned for how to win this. It's actually pretty beat up, but with a little bit of hyper potion and some elbow grease, I think you can make this one a lot prettier. So I figure give it to one of you folks to help pretty up. Shout out to the person that sold me a collection recently, Reza, I believe. He gave me a ton of cool cards, of which we're going to be performing a cool little experiment in the Patreon episode. So if you're not in the Patreon, jump in the Patreon. But we're going to have kind of two topics here. So in the public episode, I want to share with you guys a little new method that I've been experimenting with called, I don't really know what the hell to call it, but it involves a damn refrigerator. And I've also been using the blotters that I sell on my website, PokemasterCenter.com, from the Humidity Storm kit. And I'll show you exactly what I kind of recently discovered. So let me first show you guys. I'm starting to make a move towards opening up more and more of my tutorials. Originally on my website, a lot of the tutorials only came with kits when you purchase them. However, I am moving more towards open sourcing them, so stay tuned for that. One of the tutorials that has been open sourced recently is the Humidity Storm tutorial. The tutorial itself is revolved around the Humidity Storm stack. However, you can replace the thick blotters with just the thinner blotter that you can find, on Amazon and stuff. But this thicker blotter is actually lab grade, and it's very difficult to get a hold of, especially these other materials too, like the Gore-Tex and the polyester. Which is why I sell those kits on my site. I had to jump through hoops to get that stuff. But let me share the tutorial here real quick, which you'll see pop up here. It was a decent amount of back and forth on this. But if you go to my website under the resources tab, there's tutorials. And I've recently open source the Precision Crease Tools tutorial, as well as the Humidity Storm tutorial, and there's a bunch more coming soon. There's some videos here, but you can see all these exclusive instructions for the heat pan and other things. Those things will slowly become open over time. For now, Humidity Storm was one I wanted to open source because I would love for you folks to provide some cool feedback as far as how you're using the stack, and, the times you're leaving the cards in, like how long, how much water you're using. If you prefer spot treatment, meaning just spotting a part of the blotter paper with humidity, or soaking the whole blotter, which is what I've been doing. But this tutorial does kind of cover both. on both, spot treatment as well as the full soaking of these blotters. So they hold moisture very well. As you can see in some of my other videos in the past, you can really soak in a lot of moisture into these blotter papers. So there's one spot here you can see I was just literally pouring water all over these things. But you can find this video at the bottom. There's a couple of other videos on my Instagram I haven't put on here yet of me using it. But bottom line, you take the blotter papers and you soak them up. You can, like I said, spot treat. Like if there's just a spot on the card you want to humidify, you can just soak one spot of it. However, I've noticed the card gets kind of wonky. But in the same token, if the card looks really clean other than one spot, you just need to make sure that you're drying it and flattening it properly, which goes towards the refrigerator method that we'll speak to here. So in the classic fashion, you get the blotters wet, put the Gore-Tex on, then you put the polyester over, then you put the card in between and you create basically a sandwich, right? And then you close it up like this. You can use the clamps. You can literally just close it up and just leave it like that without any pressure. I've even heard of people using weights on top. As long as the pressure is even, you should be fine. You don't want to like super squish these things though, right? You just need little light clamps to kind of hold the card in place as it's absorbing moisture. Now this new step, we recently had the whole heat press episode, right? Where we showed how to use the heat press. Well, I've been experimenting with my thick blotters and I'm really loving this new method with those thick blotters, because what I've been doing is I've been placing the card on top of the blotter with the paper back towards the blotter paper. This is a dry blotter, by the way. This is not a soaked blotter, okay? Then we put parchment over, seal it up, put the plates. You can see a full breakdown of how to actually make this heat press sandwich. And what I've been doing is heat pressing it to 170, but right when it hits 170, I literally just turn it off. So I put it in there, close it up, hit 170, and right when it gets up to 170, shut it off. And at that point, then I let it sit. I think this is the part that people in the whole restoration game is you need to be patient. Taking things out too quickly from heat or cold or any sort of fluctuation in environments is going to cause the paper stock to react to those environments. So if you heat press a card and you yank it out quickly and the card's still hot, that cold air is going to affect the card and make it kind of wonky. So let the card sit in the heat press and let it fully cool down. We talked about it with Matthew, Shiny Asset Exchange, about how he lets the cards cool down completely. It's a really good idea to do that. Don't be impatient with this and just try to throw it right into the next step here, which is what I've been doing with putting the card in the refrigerator. So that part, I am going to be updating this guide here soon with. But basically what I've been doing is something along the lines of what this ChatGPT thing explains here. I wanted to just kind of break down the science a little bit about why this works. So after the heat press method and the card's been sitting in there for, 3-4 hours, basically until I can feel that if I put my hand in between the heat press, if I feel that there's no heat there anymore, then I'll go ahead and take the card out. Then what I've been doing is I've been taking these screw down flatteners and I've been sleeving, so I'll sleeve the card like so. Mind you, I'm almost wondering if it's probably better. Maybe I think I did do this too in another experiment, but using like large penny sleeves, that way the card can breathe in a 360 fashion rather than just out the top here, moisture escaping. But anyway, putting the card literally in between the acrylics like this and putting it into the fridge. When I would screw it down, I wouldn't screw it down like all the way, right? I would screw it down until I feel just a tiny little bit of resistance and then stop. We talked about this in the last Patreon episode with Sebastian, but basically, you should be seeing when the things clamp down just a tiny little sliver of opening on all four sides. You don't want to be screwing down them really hard, right? Then you let the card sit in the refrigerator for like 4 or 5 hours, not the freezer. And that's the thing is, I want to try the freezer though because uh, ChatGPT at first said just put it in the fridge. Now with this, it's saying freezer. So I don't know. I mean, maybe freezer might work. I got to give it a shot more, like more experiments. But I did do the fridge method, and those seem to have worked really well. And what I would do is I would take it, I would let it sit in the fridge for 4 or 5 hours, pluck it out of the fridge, and then just place it right on top of my desk. Don't loosen it, just let it cool down naturally. And let it cool down in that flattened state. So the idea behind this is exactly as this this ChatGPT kind of breakdown here. This is an explanation about material science and how paper fibers behave. It does not describe any hidden or proprietary techniques, right? It focuses on what you asked about: cold, heat, moisture, and how they interact with card fibers. So, a Pokemon card is a laminate, right? So we have basically the layer breakdown happening here. The front is the paper, ink, varnish. You have that plastic layer. Then in the middle, you have that black core layer underneath the paper. Then the final layer is the back. That is another paper layer with the ink and the varnish on the back. Well, the front and back are porous, fibrous papers on non-hollows. On hollows, it's going to be different. You're going to have that plastic layer on the front, which is not porous. And then on the back, you have the paper. So you just got to think about the type of card you're dealing with, right? Because not all cards are the same. Vintage sports cards, for example, paper, paper, paper. So this would exactly align with that. So paper is made from cellulose fibers, which means they're hygroscopic. They absorb and release moisture, expand and contract with temperature and humidity. They soften slightly when warm. They become stiffer when cold and carry memory of stress, meaning pressure, bends, and creases. So when a card takes an indent or a crease, the fibers in that specific spot have either been compressed, buckled, microscopically fractured, or stretched into a new shape. Restoration is essentially taking those and modifying the paper fibers to go back to the way they were, right? So I wanted to ask basically like, well, what does heat in the context of paper fibers have to do with this restoration process? We've been talking a lot about the heat press. There's the heat pen, obviously. But in the context of the paper fibers in a card, what does heat play a role in? Well, first, there's the fiber softening. So within an actual card on this back layer here, this is paper, right? This is the plastic layer I was talking about. This back is paper with a varnish layer on top. When you humidify this card, the edges seep in the most moisture at first, but slowly but surely, this layer will seep in some moisture. It takes a lot longer for that moisture to collect on the inside, and it takes a lot longer for the moisture on the inside to get out than it does the edges as well. Which is why you should be very patient when flattening and such, because it's very easy to say that the card's done when the edges may have dried, but there might be humidity still trapped inside. So it says that cellulose begins to be more pliable at 90 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on humidity. So basically what that's saying is just depending on how humid the card is, will make the card softer and easier to work with, more pliable, malleable. I've heard a lot of different terms out there. The stress relaxation of the card, when a card is bent or compressed, the fibers around the damaged area carry out internal tension. Warmth loosens this stress and allows the fibers to move more freely within the card. So if you think about it from the context of a indent or crease, that area has been stressed, and your job as a restoration expert is to try to work out that stress, to teach the paper fibers where they should belong, right? The position they need to be in. So the next thing is the ink and coating softening. So albeit minor is what it's saying, which is true. The varnish layer may become slightly more elastic with heat, which helps paper beneath shift without creating surface cracking. Now, mind you, if you do get the heat too high, you can cause the ink or the plastic underneath to crack. So I have seen, and we've heard it from some people, that if they overheat press a card, go too high in the temperature, too long, certain things like Japanese, they can crack. The type of plastic that they use is different and is more susceptible to shrinking or cracking, and you can damage your card. So even in the guide, I was saying try to stick to like 160 for Japanese. You can go a little higher on vintage English, like 170 and such. Even some modern, you have to be careful. If it's like a smooth layer versus textured, you can go a little bit harder. You can go like more towards that 170 mark. But again, each card acts differently. If you want to stay safe, I would stay around 160 or below. So the next part it talks about is micro expansion. So when you humidify a card, that paper layer is expanding and pulling in moisture. Well, heat exacerbates it too, because the molecules of the moisture inside are now rapidly moving, right? So paper expands when slightly warmed. This allows compressed fibers to respace themselves. This confirms my experiment I did a while ago on one of our podcasts, where that humidor right there is actually sitting on a reptile heat pad. So I would turn on the heat pad, let the card get get humidity in the card while the card is also warm. I noticed that the card would bend less. And my theory is that the card is taking in moisture, but there's more space for moisture to enter the card. Therefore, the card doesn't bend as much versus if you just put it in a humidor at a very high humidity, like let's say 80, 90, the card bends a lot when you leave it in there for like 12 hours. You'll see it's almost in like a U shape, right? So you just got to take into consideration, okay, how warm is it in there? To be perfectly honest, I don't really use the humidity chamber with the reptile heat pad that often. I've only done it a handful of times, but it doesn't warrant more experimentation, and I think there's something there to that, especially when it comes to hearing about how cellulose, the paper itself, becomes softer and expands more with heat. So there's that. Now, the next step is more like we can call it a breakthrough or whatever, but I've heard nobody talk about this. But the actual science behind what does cold do to a card. Now, heat expands, cold contracts. So if you think about it from that perspective of what we talked about with the heat press, we put it in the heat press, the paper fibers expand, the moisture is expelled and put into the blotter paper, which, by the way, when I literally take the blotter paper and I put it into the heat press and I sit it like that, when I take the card out, I can feel the moisture in this blotter. This blotter sucks the moisture right out of the card. So I think the a heat press by itself does try to expel the moisture, but without the help of something to suck the moisture out, it takes a lot longer, and you'll see the moisture sometimes has nowhere to escape, and you'll get that weird wavy look in your parchment paper or whatever you're surrounding your card with, basically. But just take that into consideration, like, okay, how does that affect it? Now, another thing I've been experimenting with is the polyester I sell with my Humidity Storm kit can take very high temperatures. So my next step is to actually leave it like this, put the card on top with a polyester, then a dry blotter, because this polyester can withstand very high temperatures. So what I'm hoping is this gives it less texture. Because the blotter, albeit it is fairly smooth, there is like an ever so slight texture to it. And even the polyester looks like it has a texture, but when you run your finger along it, the way that this has been manufactured, it is silky smooth. So I'm hoping that that reduces the amount of texture that it gives to the card. So I'm still experimenting with that. But now the next step, so once you've kind of sucked as much moisture out of the card as possible, then it's the reason we do the cold step, and the reason I started looking into beyond the heat press is because we had the altered episode where I had some cards come back altered, and it was because we would have cards come in after the heat press looking weird, like a W, right? It would look almost like the corners were bent in or whatever. Not good, right? So I believe when the grader looked at it, they're like, what the hell is going on with this card? It is all wonky, and immediately flagged it as altered. So I then started diving into, okay, we've got the heat press, but the minute I take it, even if I leave it sitting in the heat press, the minute I take it out of the heat press and let it sit on a table, the card will slowly start to get that weird look. And so, or whatever, like some people have even, it's not even the W. Sometimes you get people saying like the card looks like this, or card kind of has a weird shape to it. The card's not flat, right? And that's what we really want. So when I started talking to ChatGPT about this, it threw out the whole cold thing. And I heard this in the past, cold pressing. But cold pressing is actually different. Cold pressing is literally when you press a card in just a traditional sense, right? Meaning it's cold, it's not, you're not warming it up, you're not doing anything. It's just, you're just pressing it. Cold pressing, I don't think refers to this. However, I could be wrong, but the idea of, we can call it cold pressing, sure, but just, I don't think it's truly cold pressing. I think cold pressing is just pressing. But cold pressing in this context could mean either throwing it into the fridge or the freezer. Now, if we read here, it says cellulose, the paper, contracts sharply at low temperatures, meaning those paper fibers try to really suck in and they get smaller, and the whole card basically just shrinks on a microscopic level. And this can lock in the new corrected shape if the fibers were softened first, right? So you put this into italics, which is interesting. But basically, if you got the card hot, wet, flattened it that way, then threw it in the heat press, then you did the cold method. Because I noticed right when I take it out of the heat press from the blotter, card is super flat. Card is flat. It looks perfect. Like right when you take it out of the heat press, you're like, W. And that's what I thought too. Until I got it back from a grading company, and I'm looking at it, I'm going, wait a minute. This is not flat anymore. What happened? Well, card kind of just sat there and probably still had moisture in it. Still had the memory of the fibers in a weird position. And I believe that this just adds that extra little step to try to lock in that flat shape. So now this says at freezer level. I've been doing it at fridge level because something told me not to do freezer. I'll have to do more experiments on that and see what's best there. But that this can lock in the newly corrected shape. Then we have moisture rejection. Extreme cold forces out absorbed moisture microscopically. This reduces swelling after the warm phase. So again, that moisture that's trapped in the card, if we throw that into a card saver and ship it off for grading immediately, that moisture slowly tries to find a way out. You got it sitting in a card saver, it's trapped, card gets wonky. Moisture still in the card starts cockling inside of there, not good. Memory reset. This is not a true reset, but freezing makes fibers rigid, helping hold the new arrangement. So, as a recap, why does the hot-cold sequence work? Here are the biomechanics behind it. 1, warm relaxes the fibers, makes them expand, and makes the card more flexible to work on. Compressed bent fibers open up, and surrounding the fibers redistributes tension. So again, the card warming up, opening up, those indents, those creases, things like that. The card basically has more room to work with because the fibers have expanded just ever so tiny bit. Enough that you may be able to get. That's why I think things like the heat pen, when those were first discovered, why that was really showing good results is because you would heat up the paper fibers in that area, and it would make not only melt this stretched plastic back down to be flat, but also help the paper underneath to expand more and try to bring those broken fibers back to a flat shape. Now the cold side of it, fibers contract and stiffen quickly, freezing the adjusted shape, reduce post-warm swelling, and stabilizes the area. The net effect is warm phase loosens and cold phase locks. I like that term locks because, again, we had really great results with the heat press, and it would look good at first, but then if you just let the card sit on the table like that, you would, in a day, you may see the card start to take some weird shapes on you. I think it's because paper fibers are still shifting, there's moisture in the card still trapped, and that's why I think the whole leaving it in the heat press overnight or a long period of time may be a good approach if you're okay with doing that. However, from a safety perspective for me, I don't want to leave the heat press on that long. But it does make sense that if you do leave it in a long period of time, you're trying to force a lot of moisture out of the card. Another thing that I think I might start trying to do is switch out the blotters. So like heat press a card, put another one, heat press it again, see if there's more moisture at the end. And that way, that'll be a kind of my litmus test of saying like, okay, how many, licks to the center of the Pokemon card does it take to get all the moisture out of the card? So TBD on that. But yeah, so, what I find interesting is just this whole new concept of putting cards in the refrigerator. I'd highly recommend you guys give it a shot. I've had some really good things with it so far. Sebastian's been doing it. He's been liking it too. So I'd love to hear back from you guys. So go ahead, give it a shot. Go run a test yourself. Humidify a card. Do a whole treatment. And then go to our Discord on Pokemaster Center's Discord. You'll see a link here in the YouTube. Or if you're in the Patreon, connect your Discord to the Patreon, and you'll get access to some secret channels as well if you do that. But go into the restoration chat. Tell me if you think that the fridge or the freezer and how long you left it, and show me pictures of before and after of you using this new fridge method. Whoever shares a good solid before and after, I'll give it a couple days. I'll say like maybe Wednesday, Thursday, I'll go through all of them. And whoever has the best before and after, I will give you this Vaporeon here. And I'll even toss in another vintage hollow somewhere too. In fact, yeah, I'll grab another one here because I'm gonna be tearing this one apart in the Patreon right now. So stay tuned for that. I've got some very cool tools that shout out to one of the Patreon members told me about these, and we're gonna jump into the page and I'm gonna show you the instructions on how to use these things. But very, very interesting little devices here that we're going to be experimenting with. Now, for the Phantasmal Flames, I have a open bounty on creases. So if you have a new method, it can be any method. It can be an existing one that's tweaked. It could be a brand new method. I want to see your methods. Creases have been one of those that a lot of people have different ways to do it. And even with myself, I've gone through so many different iterations of, and heat pen by far has been my go-to for a lot of, that and pressing, by the way. The Humidity Storm has been a big key in getting the card super malleable in order for me to reduce creases as much as possible. But I want to hear what you folks have to say. So I'm going to give it, let's say, we'll let it stew out this month. So January, first week in January, I'll run the giveaway for this. This is a Pokemon Center, Phantasmal Flames ETB. And whoever has the most, let's say, best method for reducing, if not removing creases, will win the Mega Evolutions Phantasmal Flames ETB. Just look for, I'm going to create, there is a giveaway channel. If you can post in the giveaway channel, I'll actually create a new channel. Now that I think about it, let's call it the Crease Challenge channel. And if you either go to the Patreon Crease channel or in our Discord, the Crease Channel Challenge, and post your method. Post, whether it's just text, better yet, if you have pictures or video of you performing the crease method. Even if it's the existing heat pen and tools I use, I would love to see how long you're holding the button. What types of mediums are you using when you're working on creases? Are you pressing before and after? Are you using the precision crease tools? Things like that. I have my own methods that I've been experimenting with as well recently. Love to hear what you guys have to say about that. So getting that, this giveaway will run to the end of the month. We'll be giving that away to one lucky Patreon member. I'll make sure to open this up to the chat to be for all Patreon members, meaning you can just be a free member and join that giveaway. And yeah. Thanks for just being a subscriber to the Pokemasters Center channel and Cardboard Alchemist. Please put your prayers in for Sebastian. It was really weird doing this podcast by myself. My throat's like dying right now. I really miss you, Sebastian. I didn't have to talk for 30 minutes. Now I got to talk for another 30 minutes straight in the Patreon. So, but love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've got a couple more things I want to share that are really, really cool pieces of statistics and news that I'm going to share in the Patreon. I'm going to share pull rates as well as like flipping and the whole game of like buying at what percentages. And there's basically like a lot of stats that have been released in a crazy video recently that I deep dove into. And I wanted to share it with you guys. So if you're not in the page, get in the page. And yeah, till next time, thank you for watching Cardboard Alchemist.
Yeah, you like my outfit? Don't even